Brad Vincent with Realty Right Texas. I hope I don't look too sweaty. I've been running around doing work on my property, but I want to try to knock out this third dad video on the anniversary of my dad's death, the 22nd. Anyone who doesn't know, I'm doing these videos to keep my dad's legacy alive. I've told the stories in the other two videos that I'm just always telling these dad stories, and I've been telling them recently at sales seminars and things like that. And people always come up to me and compliment the stories about my dad and say, that motivated me, or it was a funny story, or share some like-minded experience or whatever. So it's my way of keeping him alive. My dad was a tremendous salesman and a great competitor and just a really tough, awesome guy who really put a lot of work into my family, into raising me, and he had a vision for me. And his vision for me was one of success in multiple ways. He really just wanted me to try my best, everything I did. This story is about how when I made my transition into real estate, my dad gave me the best advice that I'd ever received, and really is what made my career what it is. And just as some backstory, I did not get good grades in school when I was young. In fact, I got in a ton of trouble and skipped class and those kinds of things. I just barely graduated high school. But there's this big trend when I graduated high school that everybody had to go to college all of a sudden. Like when I was young, if you weren't a college kid, you got a trade job or went to the military or something like that. But then, somewhere along like the last 4 years I was in high school, like everybody all of a sudden was told you can't make anything of yourself unless you go to college, right? So my parents kind of bought into that. They wanted me to go to college, even though I'd never even shown like the most minor inkling of being able to do well in school. And so it was a real struggle session between me and my dad, me and my mom. And this idea, like strangers would come to me on the street and say, "Hey, young man, are you going to college?" And if I said no, they'd be like, "You're a loser," And so I had this real conflict. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. My dad taught me sales my whole life, and I wanted to run my own business. I had a little lawn mowing business that I turned into like a power washing business, which I turned into like a fence rebuilding business. And I was doing pretty good with it. And being like 18, 19 years old, I was making what I consider to be very good money, enough to hang out with my buddies and put gas in my truck and that kind of stuff. But I tried the college thing because my dad wanted me to, and I really wanted to make him happy and proud about it. And in the end, after trying for a couple of years, going back and forth, working jobs and things like that, I quit. I really wasn't working for me. And I got a sales job, and I did pretty darn good at the sales job, but I hated the job because I hated selling products that I knew the people I was selling to didn't want. And my dad was this just alpha male type guy who was like, here's how you sell, here's how you win. Who cares about the end result of like if they want the product or not, He happened to be in an industry that was a service-oriented industry where his customers needed what he was selling them. So he kind of didn't get that I couldn't sell stuff that other people didn't want. So I kind of did my research and found real estate, and found that in real estate, you're not pushing sales onto somebody. You're servicing people. You're making sure they get the experience they need. You're making sure they don't step into the holes and the pitfalls, and that they have a great transaction. You represent your clients to the best of their ability. So I really enjoyed that. I really clung to that. But coming right out of like real estate school, I was recruited by this big luxury brand in the Galleria area. And these guys got their hooks in me, man. They now that I look back, being in it as long as I have, they almost got me, right? So I interviewed with this lady. They loved me. They asked me my salary demands, and I wrote down on a piece of paper a very small number by today's terms, but a number that would have set me for life in my mind at 22, And they didn't even balk at it. They said, "Yes, we'll give you that salary right now." And I was like, "Wait, that seems weird, And so I told him, like, "Look, I want to do the deal, but let me step back. I want to sleep on this. Let me think about it, and then I'll come back to you tomorrow and give you my answer," right? So I go to my dad and I tell him, like, "Dad, look, this awesome deal I'm getting. This is more money than any of my friends make. I'm going to be rich. I'm going to be famous." And my dad looks at me and goes, "You're an idiot." And I go, "Wait, what?" And he goes, "You don't even realize what's going on here." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "These people are going to ride you to your death." And I go, "Well, I don't understand what you're saying." He goes, "These people see you. They see your talent, your youth, and your sales experience. And they want to work you 7 days a week and make you do all the heavy lifting so they can live off your name." And I was like, I don't think so, man. I think they're paying me like a fair wage." He goes, "No, dude, like divide up the number of hours you're going to be working for this wage." And I was like, "Yeah, well, I have to do open houses on the weekends and showings on Friday nights or whatever." And he's like, "No, dude, they're killing you." He goes, "Why don't you believe in yourself?" And I go, "What do you mean, why don't I believe in myself? I'm a dumb young kid, He goes, "No, man, think about all you've done. Think about where you've got from here, Think about everything I've taught you about sales." He goes, "You'll be great at this." He goes, "You need to go off on your own." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, like this is crazy. Like I'm too young. I can't go off on my own." He's like, "Look, man, if you don't believe in yourself, fine, sign that deal. But if you believe in yourself, tear that piece of paper up and you need to go start your own business tomorrow." And he goes, you don't need to rely on anybody. He goes, jump and the net will appear. He said, I believe in you that much, son. And I was like, oh my gosh, my dad's being crazy again. Like he has too high expectations. That's per freaking usual, right? And so I sleep on it. I'm losing my mind. I can't sleep that night. And then it just kind of clicked one moment. I went, I don't have much to lose. Like I'm young. I don't have like high bills, and it just hit me like, dang, man, if he believes in me this much, I've got to believe in me this much. So I tore the piece of paper up. I didn't exactly go on my own. I found a company that would sponsor me with like no strings attached. They didn't require anything of me, and they didn't make me pay anything. And I was just basically off on my own, but with their sponsorship rather than starting my own brokerage, which was a very wise decision on my part now that I look back, because I didn't need the responsibility of all the logistics and all that. But started on my own, no mentors, no nothing, just did it myself and from the ground up. And what I found is that investing purely in myself and seeing the results purely on my name motivated me more, and I did better, right? So I definitely wouldn't have done it if I didn't have that conversation with my dad. He talked me into it. He believed in me. Like I saw it in his eyes. He wasn't BSing me. Like he really believed in me. He was like, you can do this thing. He said, I was disappointed you quit college or whatever, but I know you can crush this if you put the effort in. He said, these guys, they're going to make you do all the work and you won't get any of the credit, and they'll just pin you there. And one of the big pieces of evidence is the girl who took that job, she's still there making probably about half what I've made in my career, and no one knows her name because they pinned her down in the basement somewhere, and she doesn't have the confidence to leave because they've taken that confidence from her. So I'm very fortunate to have a dad who said, hey buddy, believe in yourself. And every success I've had in this business, every day I cash a check, I think of my dad. I owe this to him that, I would have made a living, sure, but I wouldn't have this freedom I've had to work for myself for almost 15 years to make my own name, to do business the way I want to service my clients the way I want, if it wasn't for my father. So that's dad story number 3. Again, I hope people find it interesting and it inspires them. And I'll bring the next one as soon as I get some time.